This recording is for Bucks County Community College, State and Local Government, Political Science 120E59, the e-learning course. It's April 14th, 2010. This is question time. I wanted to handle 5 items that have come to my attention over the last week in a relatively frequent basis. I wanted to talk about the final exam for just a second or two, the last paper that is due, and 3 concepts that a lot of students in the class should take another look at to clarify in their own minds. First of all, Jamie Bates wrote and asked about the final exam, and she wanted to know if it was cumulative, in other words, whether it goes back into the beginning of the course, and it does not. The material that you cover after the midterm exam is on the final, not the material in the first half of the class. Now, of course, there are some ideas from the first half of the class that you need to know for the second half, but you get the main idea of what I'm talking about here. So it's not a cumulative exam. And so I'm sure that question, the answer to that relieves a lot of you because of your hectic schedules here as the semester comes into its last stage. In the same vein, the last research paper on identifying a metropolitan-wide reform suggestions and evaluating those suggestions, that paper's not due until the beginning of May, but you might want to take a look at it now and especially think about the things we've studied in the shrinking cities, unscrambling the cities, transportation, and all the other issues that require cooperation between municipalities. I direct your attention to an organization called the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission as a website to go to, an organization to go to give you a lot of ideas about what you could write about. I think it's probably, to me, the most interesting paper in the course, and it asks you to show what you've learned and bring some things together and in a real-time basis, and it'd be good to handle some maybe local things around the southeastern Pennsylvania or the tri-state area to really bring it home to you. One of the 3 concepts I wanted to talk about was de-annexation. That is where a city gives up part of its territory and allows another municipality to be created there that has under no control of the original city. So you might have a township created within the city boundaries that would not be part of the city. It would have its own government and its own services. Perhaps they could contract with the original city to do some of it, but the municipality would be responsible for those things. And a lot of creative things I think could come out of that. And I was reading an article in the Inquirer yesterday which mentioned that the Park Commission in Philadelphia is trying to plant hundreds of thousands of trees and are looking for matching funds to do that and so forth. I thought what a great idea it would be to take a derelict part of the city that is basically a brownfield, use whatever money and matching funds that the Park Commission can get a hold of, create a few parks near some of the worst areas in the city, and then de-annex some areas right next to those parks. In other words, the parks acting as a lure to bring in private investors and residents who would be willing to create a new government there. Of course, we know that this is a tough thing to sell to people, to the cities to do, but I think it's a viable option. And if you look at Philadelphia, there are some sites that have been redone in North Philadelphia and West Philadelphia where there are single-family homes with their own garages, their own little yards, their picket fences, and so forth. They even have those. And I noticed that they're not being graffitied. They look really nice. And I'm beginning to think that these guys are on to something, that it might be a solution to hold some of the population. And also a lot of you students out there, you were thinking, well, they just want to increase the size of the city because they're democratic or whatever. I think the thing is that the size of the cities are probably going to continue to decline population-wise. But if you could de-annex areas, you might stop the flight from leaving the rest of the city, and you might actually stabilize the situation within at least that geographical area. Just some thoughts for you about de-annexation. Another issue that came up was accountability. I'd like to direct your attention to the fact that elected officials will only feel accountable if they think there's a chance that the voters will reject them for doing something wrong. So accountability requires that the public know about what's going on and be willing to vote accordingly. And I don't see that happening a lot of the time, and I guess you don't either. And hopefully this course will make you consider that fact. So one item in accountability to think about is, are these candidates worried about being reelected or not? And of course, if they're only in it for one term because they're a particularist, then I guess they could do what they want and just leave. So the accountability is not always there. And the third term I wanted to talk about was, what were the implications of the types of people who run for city council for the cities? What we're getting at there is, if you have people of a certain educational background, for example, what are the implications for the way the city will be run? Let's say most of the people who run have no higher education, or maybe even very little secondary education. Will that have implications for the way the city is run and the way they understand things? Will the fact that council members are turned over, they don't stay for a really long time, does that lack of experience have implications for the city government? Or, is it good the way it is? But what are the connections between the types of people who decide to run for council and the way cities operate? That, I think, is an important item to look at when you look at the whole system of the political scene. Basically, that's what I wanted to do in this little question time today. The exam is the last half of the course. The paper's coming due on the metropolitan-wide problems, and you want to take a look at what you want to talk about in there now. And you had the terms of accountability, de-annexation, and implications of the types of people running for city council. So that's question time for today, April the 14th, 2010. And send me some questions that I can handle soon. I'll have another one of these question times shortly. So keep on letting me know what it is that's on your mind. Enjoy the spring days. Good luck with your studies, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye-bye.